It's official. 2020 marks 4 years of streaming, and that means I've graduated and acquired the bachelor's degree in streaming. I can't walk down the aisle to receive my diploma, but joke's on them. I'd rather they mail it to me. So join me for a virtual house party of the Stream and Review 2020. To say 2020 was a memorable and unique experience for me was quite the understatement. I was jobless the entire year, which afforded me all the time in the world to stream and none of the money to spend on it. In other words, I spent $0 on the stream for the year. The improvements I can acquire at this point are definitely cosmetic. However, some items on my list are a stream deck and an internal capture card for the future. So with all that time on my hands, here's how Twitch went for the year. It was a rough year for me. Due to human malware, my internet sadly wasn't able to handle everyone at home. So for months like March, July, August, and especially September, I dropped thousands of frames a day. It was a frustrating thing to deal with, but it certainly could have been worse. And if you're curious, October and November were Trails of Cold Steel 4. Similar to the previous title, I streamed the game for 11 or more hours a day on average and knocked it out in 10 days. Crazy stuff. And now for some game stats. Here's how genres did for 2020. There's a ton of variety and I was kind of all over the place. It didn't stop RPGs from keeping the throne though. Tactics games continue to creep up and up, although I imagine that number will start to go down sooner or later due to the big name ones having already been played. We'll see. Next up is platforms. I upgraded a new PC which made me confident to play more games on it, so I did exactly that. I also have a ton of games on the PC that I need to get through at some point. The PS4 is showing up strong, even though 66% of that is Trails of Cold Steel 4. Then there are new game releases. I sadly didn't play any retro games in 2020, but other than that, had a pretty good spread of games. New games are looking like a winner, but it was old games that really showed up here. I've also added a new category of pre-release for games like early access or betas. Next up is stream length. The number of streams were quite closer here than 2019, but there is definitely a distinct weakness to short streams. I've come to notice that streams need time to get off the ground. Sometimes that takes 10 minutes, other times it takes an hour. I don't have a consistent audience yet, so I think people need to see me live before they stop by. I also have some per stream stats I thought were neat. I won't go in depth with this, so I suggest you pause, but it's cool to see which moments were actually the most successful for the year. And lastly, we have the top games for the year. I won't leave you for some juice this time, but I suggest you pause to check everything out. I thought you'd appreciate StarCraft 2 being on the list 3 times. It was also cool to see Journey being one of the biggest games of the year for me. And that's Twitch 2020. In total, I acquired 104 followers, 5,830 channel views off of 1,157 hours streamed and 44 games played. My average play time was 32 hours 12 minutes and my average time to complete a game was 7.9 days. And a huge shout out to my subscribers who continue to support me. I made $141.20 from that year of streaming. Thanks a ton for your generosity. As the years go by, it's becoming harder to find streamers I enjoy watching. Not because I'm not finding anyone great to watch, but because the slots I have time to watch them are already being filled by other people. Regardless, I have 3 wonderful streamers I enjoy watching and I hope you check them out. The first is Akita Fuki. He's a late night streamer I discovered playing Dragon Age Inquisition. He reminds me a little of myself in that he's a very chill guy who doesn't mind getting animated when the moment arises. For the year of 2020 and beyond, he's been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV and is very new player friendly. He has a great community and a fantastic Jigglypuff impression. He also has a full inventory problem. If you stop by, be sure to let him know I said his inventory is full again. The next streamer is Mr. JRPG. If you've ever thought to yourself that I'm laid back and chill, Mr. JRPG is even more so. In the long period of time I've been watching him, I don't think I've ever witnessed him getting riled up or hyped about a moment. He just leans back in his chair and says, "I really enjoyed that scene." Typically, you'll find him playing games of his namesake, but he's been known to branch out here and there. Specifically, he's been working on the Great SNES Challenge, where he's trying to play every localized RPG on the SNES. The final streamer I have for you is Emma Lazowski. Back in my early online D&D days, we were both party members in a group built on shenanigans and deadly adventures. However, on stream, she is an artist extraordinaire. She is extremely talented and has a style that is very much her own. She works with digital art here and there, but works with watercolors quite a bit. One of my favorite things about watching her coloring work is how she applies something that is clearly way too dark and 10 seconds later, it's perfect. How does she know? Oh, and when you stop by, ask her what the hit percentage on Acid Orb is. And that's a wrap for Twitch 2020. Most of my popular clips have spoilers in them, so I'm phasing them out of the stream and review. Instead, I'll release them individually someday in the future. So let's check out YouTube's stats. 4 years in and I still find myself in that awkward spot on YouTube. On a daily basis, it can feel like I'm back in 2017 just trying to play games and archive them as best I can. And yet, year after year, the needle moves up in some mysterious way. So first and foremost, thank you for watching. Now, as previously mentioned in the Twitch section, I had a lot of time on my hands. In periods where I wasn't streaming, I eventually converted it to YouTube time. And the most obvious is that large spike in October. There was a Minecraft Steve Smash Bros. Direct that day, and somehow I uploaded and published my video before Nintendo did theirs. And somehow, 27,000 people watched it. A huge stroke of luck for me on that one, but Trails of Cold Steel 4 also had a large part of it as well. With the remaining time I had, I continued releasing my staple videos like the Games of the Year 2019 as well as the Stream and Review 2019. I created 2 brand new video series as well. The first being Level Up This Playlist, a series where I hunt down for soundtrack music worthy of Playlist Edition. And the other one was The Vault of Axelrod, a glimpse into my mind, how I think, and my personal life. To say I was and continue to be nervous about it is an understatement, but it fit my drive for streaming, so I ran with it. Something I've been struggling with is what stats I could show for YouTube. I've been collecting watch time and views on a game-by-game basis, but that alone doesn't account for what I've been able to achieve on Twitch. This information I've had for years now, but never thought to include them. I also took it upon myself to aggregate the information in a similar way I do Twitch to provide a better look at subcategories. I'm considering including percentage viewed and average view duration in the future, so let's take a look at watch time and view metrics. First up is the top 10 platforms. The PS4 is home to a great deal of games I enjoyed. I admit, I was definitely expecting PC to take the top spot with the amount of games on the list, but maybe it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4 both make up more than 60% of the PS4's performance on this chart. For run types, I think it's safe to assume blind playthroughs will take the top spot through sheer volume alone. Perhaps more surprising to me is the gap between second plus playthroughs and the others. Sure, the game count isn't equal, but the gap is still a little staggering should you combine semi-blind and not blind. For genres, RPGs reign as the champion and likely will hold that spot forever. It's my bread and butter after all. The fall-off after action RPGs is also interesting. While I've always felt tactics games perform very well, it just goes to show my audience is the standard RPG and action RPG type. The other genres don't surprise too much. I play so little of non-RPGs that any of those taking the top 3 would be mind-blowing. With release types, this is where I found myself surprised. I've generally thought YouTube was more of a watch games from your childhood place, but this just proves that new releases do very well. Keep in mind that these numbers do not reflect publish date. While I make an effort to release certain new games right away, most of the time, I let them roll out in the order I played them. With that said, it definitely feels like new games are the place to be, with retro games being something to keep an eye on. This particular stat doesn't mean much without other metrics involved, but I've been curious how video length performs. It's my personal preference to watch videos that are an hour or longer, and that's the primary reason I cut them to that length. But certain platforms like handhelds allow me to cut them up into smaller ones that run from 20 minutes to 45 minutes or so. These numbers by themselves don't surprise me, but maybe with percentage viewed and average view duration added next year, we can gain better perspective. As of right now, with a cursory look at those stats, they seem functionally identical. Next up, individual game performance. If you're up to date on the Stream and Review series, then you're familiar with the top 2 games each year. For 2017, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was my one-hit wonder that came out of nowhere. The Trails of Cold Steel games trailed behind, but were very consistent. I learned at this point that the Legend of Hero games were very popular in the Let's Play community. In 2018, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 reigned supreme again. To date, it is the biggest game on my channel with a collective 3,476.1 hours watched and 27,701 views. Another surprise was Octopath Traveler, a game I didn't quite like but one I had a great time playing. A huge surprise here is Divinity Original Sin 2. Throughout the years, part 1 of that series continues to get a surprising amount of views, and I personally had no clue it would be as popular as it was. Tales of Symphonia was surprisingly not well received as well as the Kingdom Hearts franchise run. I don't blame you though, those games are crazy. In 2019, Trails of Cold Steel 3 reigned supreme. The Trails games have been in every top 5 each year, which truly shows how big that community is. Octopath showing up 2 years in a row is a surprise, but the real big deal here is Black Sigil. This is by far one of the most, if not the most, obscure game I've played, and there was a large interest in it. We also get to see Xenoblade Chronicles 2 one last time. Marvel's Spider-Man being absent shocked me. I know I typically play RPGs and all, but that was such a good game. Maybe I was too late to the party. For 2020, it may not be much of a shocker to see Trails of Cold Steel 4 take the top spot. A fun fact about those numbers is the series only had about 2 months to get that traction, so the Trails community really came in droves to see the series' conclusion. Black Sigil taking a top 5 slot once again makes me a happy person, but I think Fire Emblem Three Houses and Xenogears being on the list might be the most surprising for me. And that's all of YouTube. The Gaming Cardinal Sin videos are still not out, but someday they will see the light. So in total, I earned myself 214 new subscribers, 122,019 video views, and 1,207 videos published. My average days to publish a Let's Play was 11 days, and the average number of videos per Let's Play was 31.2. Another huge thanks to everyone who has watched and continues to do so. I appreciate it. The very last thing I have is actually my spreadsheet. It occurred to me I'd never actually shown it, so here it is in all its glory. Every single stat is created in this spreadsheet, and from 2019 and on, I record information on a day-to-day basis. For Twitch, I wait approximately 30 minutes after the stream to record the information, and for YouTube, I wait 15 days after the month has completed. YouTube has a problem with fluctuating numbers, so this helps alleviate that. Other than that, most of everything is just formulas aggregating. I'm always trying to iterate and locate misinformation, which may be the reason you see some differing stats. It's been a ton of work, but I really enjoy looking at these numbers. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see, let me know. I'm always looking for more data to include. As we're winding down here to my last few precious sentences, I want to once again thank everyone for being a part of the experience. The process is still fun for me, and I find myself keeping busy, which is always great. I want to thank my honorable co-hosts Dante, Rot, Crayson, Ken, Cyanesis, and Jeff for the E3 and the Game Awards co-streams. These are among my most memorable moments each year, and it humbles me that others were interested in the ride. But that's a wrap for the Stream and Review 2020. After seeing what 2020 had to offer, your guess is as good as mine what's going to happen in 2021. Regardless, I hope your days meet your expectations, and when they don't, just ask yourself, what's the best thing that happened to you today? Thanks for watching, appreciate it, see you on the next video. Peace. But in game, the amount of ambient... I had to take a breath, man. Like, that was the craziest sentence run on. Like, why? Sucker? Sucker. I think what gives it so much power is how much of a social 就是我们共几百卡 Sucker fool, we ain't using that. You're not using that one for the outtake, alright? I'm telling you now. Suckers. That one's totally going to the outtake, and I'm just going to embarrass myself like a sucker fool. Speaking a bunch of nonsense. I'm doomed. I'm just going to get rid of the game. This ain't no EA Sports. It evokes war so well, in addition to giving pieces of respite. Respite? 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 I think we'll keep it respite. But it could be respite. We're gonna redo that one, and we're gonna change that word to rest. That sounds stupid. Now, out of the Oh, that's not ambiguous. That's ubiquitous. And Godimus. Go check out Seth's crew. And I killed that one. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Sucker. We're just gonna get rid of Mega, because Mega is getting on my Mega nerves. I am one of, if not the most private and locked down people I've ever known. It just sounds weird. Like, I'm people, but am I a person? Out of the 40 tracks, I liked 4 of them. I decided to listen to the Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology? Chronology. That's probably how you say it. Out of the 21 tracks, I like 3 of them. I think the... Local food. I think the...